Now, much is made by the government of its commitment to people with disabilities, yet according to its own agency's report, the Scottish Executive needs to provide another 230,000 houses suitable for disabled people and their families. For wheelchair users, the situation is particularly drastic because while there are 36,000 wheelchair users, there are only 7,000 accessible homes. Funding is being made available, but at the current rate of construction, it's estimated it'll take 50 years just to meet today's demand. Ian Hamilton has this report.
This house in Forfar looks no different from any other. But it would be a dream come true for many disabled people in Scotland. It follows the Houses for Life principle developed by the Scandinavians over a decade ago.
Aye.
So wasn't it doing this 2 years ago, like?
Donald and June moved here after she had a heart attack and a stroke.
Didn't stand my taste. There's nothing for standing.
The Home for Life principle reflects people's changing circumstances, from being parents with young children through to having potential long-term illnesses and disabilities.
June can't even walk up one step, which it's built on the flat. Everything's in the flat, right outside. You could walk right around the house and come in the front door if you wanted. Well, the house is great. As you see in the kitchen, she can actually, June's actually got one hand and she can go around the kitchen with her other hand. She can stand at the sink and do the dishes, which is at exactly the height for standing. And we'll have the breakfast bar, which is a little bit lower, but it's designed for the wheelchair going in below, and she can get close up to the kitchen.
The housing organisation who built this house made it possible to change the configuration to accommodate tenants' changing circumstances.
If we had to extend up into the roof, we would need a staircase. So what we've done on the ground floor is make this cupboard very wide so that we could include a staircase at a later stage. Houses will be occupied by different households over the course of their life, so it's important that they're able to change according to people's needs. This one could be extended up into the roof space. We could take down the internal partitions to make a larger dining room. We could have a track and hoist going from the bedroom into the bathroom. All of those things have been designed in at the point of construction. They're not there yet, but they could easily be put in at a later stage.
That house may have been a dream come true for Donald and Jean, but this one in the south side of Glasgow is a nightmare for Carol and her two disabled children. It may have a ramp, but that's its only concession to access.
My son Kyle has Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and my daughter Stephanie is profoundly deaf. She has no speech at all.
How was school today? Fine.
In Glasgow alone, there's a shortage of 4,000 accessible homes. And until they moved to this privately rented house, the family were homeless. They can't afford to stay, but there's nowhere else to move to.
As you can see, the door is not wide enough. The chair can actually come in, but the chair won't turn. And we can't get my son into the bath. So we actually have to take him down to my brother's house to actually give him a bath. But then I've got to take him out of my brother's house into the cold, into a damp house.
Glasgow Housing Association say the problems in the city are historical, but they are working closely with tenants to try and solve it. In the 50s and 60s, we demolished thousands of properties in order to make way for new ones. They too are now coming down. According to housing academics, they didn't meet disabled people's needs then, and the replacements for these tower blocks still don't.
The government of recent years has made quite a lot of effort to espouse the importance of social inclusion, but we can really see that disabled people in a very real way are designed out of the built environment, and in some ways are prisoners in their own homes and are unable even to use their own homes in a way which non-disabled people would expect to.
And it's not just about social housing.
Well, what we find is that developers will choose, even when we have a ground floor, as we do in the situation here, so they could actually enter the property on the ground floor, will choose to enter from the first floor to avoid the requirement to put in a lift, because there's then only a limited number of floors above what they call the ground floor. The result is about 18 steps we have here up to the front door of the property and a very inaccessible house.
But private sector builders are not breaking any rules. Disabled housing organisations want the building regulations to be toughened up.
In the past, there was never an accessible standard for buildings, and building regulations in particular didn't encourage any form of accessibility, probably until about the 1990s. What we see since then is some gradual improvements, but simply not enough. Buildings these days are designed to be visitable by disabled people, not livable. So the question that remains, where are disabled people supposed to actually live?
The difficulty is that no two disabled people are the same. What might suit me wouldn't suit a wheelchair user. Come on, Moss. Good boy, Moss. On you come. Good boy. As someone who is blind, the most important thing for me is not physical access. It's all about that old phrase, location, location, location. So when I was trying to buy this house last year, I was looking at all aspects. Because I don't drive, public transport was really important. And so was nearby shops and doctors.
We met before, I think.
And that's the Scottish Executive's argument. They want to build homes that are appropriate for everyone.
All new social rented houses in Scotland are built to varying needs standards, which is very similar to the kind of lifetime home standard that people talk about in England. And next year, with the new building standards, that standard will apply to all new houses in the private sector as well as the social rented sector. So we think in terms of all new build, we have a pretty high standard in terms of access. But of course, there are also, over and above that, 300 houses this year being built specifically for those who need wheelchair access.
Disabled groups welcome this, but say, at the current rate of investment, it will take over 50 years just to meet today's demand for wheelchair accessible homes. At this rate, young Kyle here will be well into his 60s before this problem is solved.